Alright guys, welcome to the lab video on micropipetting. Now I know, if I'm in 114, I'm going to do this all over again. The answer is yeah, you do. You got to do it all over again, folks. I am sorry, and the reason is because just like with volumetric pipetting, we are going to get you to volumetric pipette and micropipette at the beginning of this semester. You could have just gotten lucky. You could have gotten lucky in 114, but guess what? We're going to try it again, and we're going to see if you get lucky or if you actually know what you're doing. So with the 114 crew, if you are returning back, guess what? This is the same lab activity that you saw back in the day when you did it already. But that is perfectly fine. Practice, hopefully, tries to make us perfect, even though we're not perfect. We've already talked about that in the lecture videos, but stats will help us out. All right, so in this particular lab exercise, if you are new to us and a new face, well, again, welcome aboard. And we're going to teach you how to use a tool that we call a micropipetter or a micropipette. Micro. All right, so let's talk there first. Micro, when I was growing up in the 80s, every Saturday morning we were watching Saturday cartoons because guess what? We didn't have the internet. We didn't have cell phones. We had to actually get out and play or watch TV, and we had to suffer through the commercials. But commercials were kind of good back in the day because they knew they had to be to catch our attention so we wouldn't walk off and go to the kitchen to get a snack by the time that we got back. Well, there was a commercial called Micro Machines, and it was this guy, and he talked faster than what I talk on double speed, if you imagine that. And he would try to sell me these little bitty, teeny tiny micro machines, which was move over, Hot Wheels. I don't need you. I want these little bitty, teeny tiny cars that I can play with. Well, guess what? Micro pipettes are little bitty tiny. No, they're not little bitty tiny pipettes. That's not how this works. Micro pipettes are going to be delivering little teeny tiny volumes in a laboratory setting. So I want you to go back and I want you to think about the volumetric pipette lab that we already did. You probably said, oh, 25 milliliters volumetric pipette, and then 10 milliliters volumetric pipette, and 5 milliliters volumetric pipette, and then you probably got to one that was 0.7, and you tried 0.7, and you tried 0.7 again, and you tried 0.7 again, and you're like, darn it, I can't get this one to work, it's too touchy. Whenever I suck solution up, it goes too fast. Whenever I drain it, it goes too fast. Hey, I think I've got a good set of data. Would you check it? And then I'm going to look at that data and I'm going to key it in and I'm going to go, nope, do it again. That's not good enough. So you probably were ready to stab me with those volumetric pipettes if that was the case. But the issue here is that I wanted you to suffer. And the reason I wanted you to suffer is because I want you to appreciate the job that a micropipette could do, especially on the lower realms of the milliliter and into the microliter arena. So that 0.7 that you delivered using a volumetric pipette, that 0.7 can easily be also delivered using a micropipetter in our laboratory, and you would probably enjoy delivering that 0.7 much better. It will be much easier. It will be much smoother. You will get better data because overall, micropipettes, just like volumetric pipettes, folks, the accuracy here, ching ching, I mean, that is great. And the precision here, cha-ching, that is great. So just like glassware, these tools are going to help us out. And they're going to help us out with sample preparation. They're going to help us out with some of the upcoming labs throughout the semester. And we've got to be able to know how to use them the proper way. And that's what this lab activity is all about. It's just simply, let's suck up some water into these volumetric pipette tips. Let's deliver that water. Let's make sure we can do that process the proper way, because later on in the semester, when we've got to go to these things again, I will be ready for it. I will know how to use them because I've already went through the gauntlet of generating data and having Crazy Tracy check my data. And then he kept saying, no, 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 no. And then I'm going to show him, yes, 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 I can do the job. And here's the proof. So that's what this lab experiment is all about. So very tiny volumes here, and the tiny volumes is microliter. All right, so microliter, and we abbreviate that with a little bitty U, what looks like a U, even though it's not a U. That U has a really long stem on the left-hand side of that. That is called the Greek letter mu. So, yeah, that's my cat noise. So either way, that microliter is going to be pretty important because that means super small quantities here. And this is going to be much easier, much better to deliver those small quantities in a lab environment. So milliliter is what we've used up until this point, and a milliliter, of course, was those 25 mils and those 10 mils and that 1 milliliter or that 5 milliliter that you did the last time that you were in the lab. Milliliters, of course, are going to be abbreviated with an M and an L for milliliter, and micro is the mu sign or Greek letter with a U looking shape with a long stem on the left. In the health field, you can get micro as well, microliters, micrograms, but very often they will use MC as an abbreviation. We do not do that in a laboratory setting for the most part. We use that mu symbol, and MC is there because that mu symbol and that milliliter symbol, the M and the mu, that will actually look very similar. And if I'm a doctor or if I'm a nurse, then I could maybe interpret that mu as an M, and if I do that, then I'm going to overly medicate and maybe potentially kill somebody with the medications that I got to give them. So that's why they actually use MC and M in the health science arena, because that MC is like, hold up, that is meaning something, and that means micro. All right, so what does micro and milliliter have in common? Well, micro and milliliter, they're 1 milliliter. All right, so 1 milliliter is like 20 drops of stuff. I think visually in your head, if you think about 20 drops, that is a pretty good estimate of what 1 milliliter is all about. So that 1 milliliter, that amount of volume, that is equal to 1,000 microliters. So that is the relationship, that is the conversion between the two. We will talk about this a little bit later in the video, but I want to put this into your head as a little bitty Jack and the Beanstalk seed right now. So that way that beanstalk can grow and reach the clouds, and then you can get the golden goose of a 100 on the quiz and the lab experiment. All right, so what you see on the screen, these are micropipetters or micropipettes. Those are tools that we use to deliver these really small quantities. They are made by different manufacturers. They're made in different sizes, and they can be made in different ways as far as what we call fixed or variable. And we'll talk about that in just a minute. These micropipettes, though, folks, the ones that you're going to use today are student versions of micropipettes, and that's because we don't quite trust you. We don't trust you to deliver the proper way or to use them the proper way. And we don't want our really, really good ones to be messed up, because the reason is our really, really good ones can be up to $700, $600, $800, $1,000 a piece, depending on where we ordered them from, who manufactured them, what kind of accuracy and precision do they actually have. These price points will fluctuate. So I'm not going to let you use the really, really good ones in order to mess them up on the very first day that you use them. You might accidentally drop them. You might suck solution up into them, into the gears, into the mechanisms, into that grease lubricant that makes it all work. That is bad news bears. So I keep them hidden, and I keep them hidden for a reason. Sooner or later they will come out. Sooner or later you will use them, absolutely, but not right now. Not right now. You're now going to be using the little old trashy student micropipettes. I like for you to think of this as like back in the day, we had the hand crank our car windows. All right, I'm giving you a car to drive in, but I am giving you one that has hand cranked windows, and they are not power locks. They're manual locks, and they're cloth seats. That is what I'm giving you to use right now. And when you test yourself, when you can prove and demonstrate that you can drive a vehicle safely without looking on your phone and texting and driving. It used to be drinking and driving. Now it's texting and driving. They should outlaw it, from what I believe. Well, okay, then we will upgrade, and we will upgrade into luxury. Woo! So we've got really expensive micropipetters that are like Italian leather cloth seats, power locks, rear view backup camera. Woohoo! I mean, we got them, but you're not going to use those in the very beginning, and that's because cha-ching, 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 money, 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 money. So I want to save some money if you're going to damage it, and that's why we let you use the old trashy basic ones first. So micropipetters are going to come in different sizes. I mean, what I'm trying to talk about here is what they actually deliver, just like volumetric pipettes. So we can have micropipetters that will go maybe 1,000 to 100 microliters. Okay, that's great. And then I could have another set of micropipetters that will maybe go from like 100 to 10 microliters maybe, right? Okay, that's great too. And then I could get ones that go from 10 microliters to 0.1 microliters. I mean, I don't know. Different manufacturers will make them different ways. These have multiple different choices that I could choose from when I order them. They will all have ranges on them that tells me the maximum and the minimum that they are made to deliver. So what this means is that if I needed something to deliver 25 microliters of solution, I'm not going to use the first one. Why would you use the first one? Make it have common sense, okay? If I'm delivering 25 milliliters, why am I going to pick a micropipetter that goes from 100 to 1,000? 25 is not part of that range. 25 is not part of that window. Why am I trying to use that to deliver 25? I will never be able to do it the proper way. So I need to make sure I'm picking the right micropipetter today when I begin to deliver these volumes. One size does not fit all, okay? In the middle of the screen, you'll see pipette tips, and pipette tips, again, it is not, I'm going to repeat that, it is not one size fits all, and that's because we've got different micropipetters, and those micropipetters, depending on their size, will need different size tips. So what that means is that the 1,000 to 100 will often have a certain tip that I need to be using. The 100 to the 10 will often have a certain tip that I need to be using, and that tip will be different than the 1,000 to 100. So sometimes these things are color coded. Sometimes the tips are actually colored. Sometimes the boxes are colored. Sometimes they are not labeled or colored at all. We just had to kind of know what we're using. Maybe we can put our own labels on them, but I need you to keep in mind, one size does not fit all. So part of today is learning how to pick the right micropipetter and how to pick the right tip to go with that micropipetter. Over here to the right-hand side, micropipetters again come in different forms and different sizes. Absolutely they do. And this is what we call a multi-channel. So if you take a look at the way this micropipetter works, from the top up, it looks the same. So that gear, that mechanism, all of the kind of pieces and parts for a single micropipetter channel, those are still in place. They're still there. They're still made. The difference is the bottom half. And if you look at the bottom half, there are multiple tips on this multi-channel pipette. Those multiple tips, well, they're there because they are going to suck up solution, but really it's the same amount of solution in every single tip. And then they're going to deliver that solution, and they deliver it out the same way in every single tip. So what will happen here is that this will allow us in a lab environment to prep multiple samples the same way at the same time. That is the reason of using a micropipetter. We don't really use these quite often. This is really the world of biotech or biochemistry in a way. Whenever we're working with things like DNA or RNA or protein type of work, maybe I'm doing PCR, whatever the case might be, very often I am required to do multiple sample preps of these things. And if that is the case, that is fine. Single channels are going to be aggravating because there could be like 96 samples in one run that I've got to measure out. Oh my God, 96, absolutely. I don't want to use a micropipetter 96 times to make these samples with. So hence, we get multi-channels that we can use instead. They are a little bit more expensive, and our lab does have them. But guess what? Just like the other ones, I've hid them. You got to find my secret hiding space. But we do have them. There's a few of them just in case we need them at any point in time. But quite honestly, you'll go throughout our 2-year program, and you will never have to use these at all for any specific purpose unless you're taking classes that are more of what I would call biochemistry or biotechnology realm. Micropipettes, again, they are made by different manufacturers. The ones that you'll use today are made by a company called Ward's, and Ward's Scientific is just a scientific supplier. Fisher makes them. VWR makes them. A company called Edvotech makes them. We really do like those. BioHit makes them. So the list just goes on and on about the different manufacturers or the different brands of micropipetters that are out there. Your lab, when you get a job, will have a preference, and that lab will typically stick to that preference unless there's some kind of like mass overhaul that begins to happen because the company has decided of how to save, tons of money by changing out a micropipette supplier. These student micropipettes, I called them cheap and skanky and nasty. Well, they are, but price point, they're still a little expensive. So we still want you to use them the proper way. Please do not abuse them, and we will demonstrate in the external lecture videos or lab videos. You'll see that as well. We will demonstrate how to use these the proper way, so that way you feel a little bit better about using them for yourself. There are ones called fixed and variable. Fixed micropipetters, you just get one shot at a volume, that is it. So for instance, 100 microliters. Maybe that is the only thing that we need. That micropipetter is going to be fixed, which means it will only deliver 100 microliters and nothing more. And if that is the case, then maybe that's great. That's all that we need. And these fixed micropipetters actually give us a little bit of better accuracy and precision than the other one does. But the variable, we got to change the volumes with. That's what that means. So down here at the very bottom, as far as the micropipettes go, variable means you can change them. So for instance, 1,000 to 100 microliters. That allows me to change the volume delivery. We get to use that micropipetter in many different ways and many different types of scenarios. And we're not necessarily what I would call wasteful with fixed volume. Fixed volume does not work with us many, many times. We've got to have a variable micropipetter instead. Now, unless I'm doing the same thing every single time the same way, and these are nice, clean, even numbers like 50 and 100 and 1,000, we just don't find a place for fixed micropipetters in our laboratory spaces. Every micropipetter that we have that you will be using will be variable ones, not fixed ones. And guess what? I do have fixed ones. Surprise, surprise! Surprise, surprise. Well, I got them in a hiding spot, but I will never bring them out because very often we will never need them. Multi-channel pipettes, you might think they're going to be double, quadruple the price, but they're not actually. These normally go for like $1,000, $1,100 a pop. That's typically kind of where they max out for a regular run-of-the-mill multi-channel. The reason that they are not double, triple, or quadruple the price is because the top half is the same, and the top half is what makes this work. Whether it's a single or whether it's a multi-channel, that top piece is the majority of that micropipetter. It's got to be there no matter what. The only thing that they're doing down here at the very bottom is adding a little bit of extra attachment on there. So that way you can pull up and you can deliver multiple ones of the same volume at the same time. So yeah, it's going to cost a little bit more money. There's more material and supply, but the top half, which is really where most of the money is going to be located, is really the same throughout the entire thing. All right. Next up are micropipette tips. We talked about these as well. Again, one size does not fit all. Alert, 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 alert. That is a problem, and you got to get used to it. So you've got to make sure that you're picking the right tips with the right micropipetters. If not, it's going to be a disaster. And they try to make the wrong tip not fit. Meaning, if I accidentally pick too big of a ones, it will not stay attached to the micropipetter. And if I pick too small of ones, then it's going to be too tight or it won't even fit on the end of the micropipetter. So they try to put safety mechanisms in place here to tell you, hello, you've got the wrong one, silly. And that way you'll go back to the drawing board and you'll figure out a tip that's actually more appropriate. What you're seeing here for micropipette tips, they are meant to be disposable. So one-time shot is really what we do when we use tips. And after we deliver that volume, we throw that tip away. These tips, as far as a box goes, they will cost anywhere between $25 to $50 on a random day, depending on who we order them from, for a box of tips. And a box of tips will normally hold like 100 or 50 or somewhere in there. So these are not cheap, but they are not the most expensive things that we order. And they are meant to be disposable. And you can autoclave them, and they can be sterilized. So, you know, biotechnology, microbiology, they might have a need for these, but they need to be super clean. They need to be sterilized. We need to make sure that they stay that way. So they are made of like a heavy type of plastic, if you want to think of it that way. And they are autoclavable. They can be sterilized, but again, they are meant for one-time use. Once you use them once, trash them, get rid of them, make me happy. Throw it away, please. However, in today's lab, what you're going to be doing is that you're just going to be using water, really, because that's kind of the safest, especially if you've never used these before. And we're going to be using water to deliver on a balance, and we're going to be recording the mass. Well, in today's experiment, what you can do is you're going to dial your micropipetter to a certain volume. So let's say I'll dial it to 725 microliters. So I've got 725 dialed in, and I'm going to use a tip, and I'm going to pull 725 microliters up into the tip, and then I'm going to deliver it out onto the balance. I'm going to record that mass. Do not throw away the tips, all right? And the reason is because your directions are going to get you to do this over and over and over. So there is going to be a time here where you're going to take multiple 725 microliter squirts. Okay, because that's what they are. Well, if that's the case, then why are you trashing them? You're using the same stuff, and you're just squirting them out onto a balance pan, and you are, or a weigh boat, and you are recording those masses as you do them. So do not switch out the tips today. I don't think it's needed. One tip will be able to do everything that you need to do as long as you're using that one micropipetter. That is not an issue. The problem here in real lab, though, is that we would switch them, we would trash them, because we are always worried about contamination here. And contamination can be an issue. And if I am contaminating my sample, then, where is it coming from? How can we minimize that contamination? That is something that I'm always having to worry with. It's something that I'm always having to talk about. So that is the piece that we need to make sure that we take care of. And that is why we throw these tips away. Contamination can be a bad thing if it's not really contained. All right, so contamination, blah, 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 blah. Look at my Dr. Scribble. All right, so what you're seeing here in the image is a micropipetter. On the micropipetters, you will see a dial, and there's the dial on the micropipetter. I see it. It's there. There's a set of numbers. I will give you a warning. We do have student versions of micropipetters, and you will see 3 digits onto the scale and a couple of tick marks down here at the very bottom. When I begin to talk about dialing in these micropipetters, you need to understand that there is a trick that we've got to do with some of the student versions of the micropipetters that are on the larger end or the larger scale in the house. So, let's say that I pick the largest micropipetter, and that goes from 1,000 to 100 microliters. Notice that these are 4 numbers in that digit, right? 1000. The problem with the student versions is that they're cheap, and they're cheap for a reason, and that's because they try to get by as least as they can in the manufacturing of the micropipetter. So on the scale, you will see 3 numbers, and that is it. But 1,000 has 4 numbers. Uh-oh! How do we read this? Well, your 4th digit is actually coming down here on this little tick mark scale that you will see on your micropipetters. So the way that this is reading right now, if I pick the larger micropipetter in our lab, it is 100. And then let's say that our tick mark down here lines up to be at the 0 mark as well. That will be our 4th digit. So this readout is not 100 microliters on our big micropipetters. This readout is actually 1000, which is 1,000 microliters on our larger micropipetters. Okay? All right, well, if that's the case, if I dial this down, because that's as high as it can go, it can't go any further. 1,000 is the cap, 1,000 is the max. Well, if I dial this into 0, 7, and 3, what is that number? That is not 73 microliters. That's going to be 0, 7, 3, 0. Again, if that tick mark lines up with the 0 down here at the very bottom. So in other words, that would be 730 microliters on our larger micropipetters. That is the only time that this is going to work the way it's going to work. It is due to that 1,000 that is an issue. That 1,000 has too many numbers. They did not give us a dial to go to 4 digits. And they're assuming that that 4th digit is that tick mark every single time. Now, on the other hand, if I pick a smaller micropipetter, and that smaller micropipetter might go from 100 to 10 microliters, then these are direct readouts in those cases. So what that means is that if I do 100, and there could be still tick marks down here, well, that is 100, and that would be 100 point, and there's still like a little decimal there that I can add on to the value. That is not an issue at all. All right, well, if I choose that smaller micropipetter where we only have to worry with 3 digits, and that is it, if I do 050, then that is sure enough 50 microliters for that particular micropipette. Now, our good micropipettes, not the student versions, but the ones that I hide from you in the drawer, those micropipettes are direct readouts. So what you dial in is what you see, and what you see is what you're going to be delivering. They are going to be much easier, and they do not make you second guess yourself. And I wish that the student versions would not do that, but they do. That's just how they're made. So just keep that in mind when we do switch over to the real good ones, probably in your, I would say midway through the program, then those will be direct readouts on the display that you can see. All right, so that's kind of the story with an intro to micropipettes. You will see some more videos that will happen after this, and we're going to pick up from here in the next video. We're going to talk about how to deliver volumes the proper way using the micropipetters, now that we know how to dial into the volume that we want to actually suck up and deliver. So in the next video, we'll pick up from here. We'll talk about plungers, and no, we're not talking about the plungers in your toilet in your bathroom when you get stopped up. We're going to talk about plungers of micropipetters. So with that said, I'll see you back in the next video, and we'll pick up from there.